Janabalabha Girivardhari Gopi Janabalabha Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Brajachanandana Yasodhanandana Brajachanandana Yamanati Ravanachadi Yamanati Ravanachadi Madhava Kunjabi Adi Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Brajachanandana Yasodhanandana Brajachanandana Yamuna Tiravanachadi Yamuna Tiravanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jaya Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivitagacharya Astatara Sattasi Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gora Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 25 Gatim Jigishatak Padao Rorohate Bikam Padbyam Yagyasvayam Havyam Karma Bhi Kriyate Nribihi Gatim Jigisitak Padao Ruruhate Bikamikam Padbyam Yagyasvayam Havyam Karma Bikriyate Nribihi Gatim Jigishatak Pado Ruruhate Bikamikam Padnyam Yagyasvayam Havyam Gatim Jigishatak Pado Ruruhate Bikamikam Padbyam Yagyasvayam Havyam Karma Bikriyate Nribihi Pado Ruruhate Bikamikam Gatim movement Jigishitaha so desiring Pado the legs Ruruhate being manifested Abikamikam purposefully Padbyam from the legs Yagyaha Lord Vishnu Swayam personally himself Havyam the duties Karma bihi by one's occupational duty Kriyate caused to be done Nribihi by different human beings. Translation, thereupon, because of his desiring to control movement, his legs became manifested. And from the legs, the controlling deity named Vishnu was generated. By his personal supervision of this act, all varieties of human being, probably should be plural, all varieties of human being are busily engaged in dutiful occupational sacrifice. Occupational sacrifice, not the other kind. Purport. Every human being is engaged in his particular occupational duty, and such activities are visible as men go hither and thither. This is very prominently visible in big cities of this world, People are going all over the cities with great concern from one place to another. This movement is not limited only to the cities, but also visible outside the cities, from one place to another, from one city to another, by different means of vehicles. Men are moving by cars and rails, on the roads, by subways, within the earth, and by planes in the sky, for the purpose of business, success. But in these movements, the real purpose is to earn wealth for comfortable life. For this comfortable life, the scientist is engaged, the artist is engaged, the engineer is engaged, the technician is engaged, all in different branches of human activity. But they do not know how to make the activities purposeful, to fulfill the mission of human life. Because they do not know this secret, all their activities are targeted towards the goal of sense gratification without control, and therefore, by all this business, they are unknowingly entering into the deep regions of darkness. Paragraph. Because they have been captivated by the external energy of the Supreme Lord, they have completely forgotten the Supreme Lord Vishnu. And thus they have taken it for granted that this life, as presently manifested under the conditions of material nature, is all in all for enjoying the highest amount of sense gratification. But such a wrong conception of life cannot give anyone the desired peace of mind. And thus, in spite of all advancement in knowledge, by use of the resources of nature, no one is happy in this material civilization. The secret is that at every step they should try to execute sacrifices toward the path of world peace. Bhagavad Gita 18:45-46 also advises the same secret in the following verses. Sve sve karmani abhirataha samsiddhim labhate naraha sva karma niratak siddhim yatha vindati tachtrinu. Yatak pravritir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam sva karmana tam abhyarchya siddhim vindati manavaha. The Lord said to Arjuna, quote, "Just hear from me how one can attain to the highest perfection of life simply by discharging his specific occupational duty. Man can attain the highest perfection of life by worshiping the Supreme Lord and by performing sacrifice for the sake of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is all-pervading and by whose control every living being acquires his desired facilities according to his personal propensity." Paragraph. There is no harm in having different propensities in life because every human being is proportionately independent to chalk out the plan of his life by different occupations, but one should make it a point in his life to know perfectly well that he is not independent absolutely. One is certainly under the control of the Supreme Lord and under different agencies. Knowing this, one should make it a point that his work and the result of his labor, by his work and the result of his labor, he serves the Supreme Lord as prescribed by the authorities, expert in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. For performing such occupational duties of life, the leg is the most important instrument of the body, because without the help of the legs, one cannot move from one place to another, and therefore the Lord has special control over the legs of all human beings, which are meant for performing yajna. Brr. Okay. Different than in previous verses where there's a significant attempt to explain the connection between the Supreme Lord and His universal form. Focus here is going to Supreme Lord wanting to facilitate His desire to move about, and thus manifesting His legs in the universal form, and the presiding deity over the legs of the universal form is Lord Vishnu. And then such propensity by the Supreme Lord to move here and there is manifest with some water. Is manifest, just set it down, is manifest within living entities. So the propensity, similar to the previous, the propensity of living entities to move about here and there, no problem. The propensity for living entities to desire to move about here and there in this manner, that manner, the other manner, no problem. Provided the ultimate purpose is served. Say it negatively. If the ultimate purpose is not purposefully being served, then one becomes captured in illusion, which is largely the case. Say it the other way. It's exceptional if somebody understands propensity, in this case it's the propensity to move about, has a transcendental purpose, ultimately. So it's not just fulfilling a tendency. There is fulfilling of a tendency. That's what's being said here in this purport. Performing prescribed duties. Nothing wrong, one should perform prescribed duties. Not that, sarva dharmam parijajamami, what does that mean? Krishna is not indicating to Arjuna become a sannyasi. He's a grihastha, and he's a kshatriya. And he's wanting him to do the kshatriya's duty, which is one of the dharmas, at least the dharma for Arjuna. So he's not advising him, stop your dharma, stop being a kshatriya, stop being a householder, become a sannyasi, and don't perform duties. It's not karma sannyas. He's not advocating karma sannyas. So what's he advocating? The focus upon the purpose of dharma. The worldly dharma has a purpose. The worldly dharma has a purpose of pleasing Vishnu. So subordinate subordinate dharmas or propensities, like in this case, moving about, so the scientist moves about, and the technician moves about, and the engineer moves about, and not just people, living entities move about. Living entities can't be focused on that higher purpose. We can train a behavior, but not a consciousness in lower animals. Behaviors, yes. Consciousness, no. Human beings, behaviors, yes. Consciousness, yes. So that's the message of this purport. And it's the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, it's the message of Bhagavad Dharma. It's explaining further 1866 Bhagavad Gita in very practical terms. At least that's what Prabhupada is doing in this purport. And that was his mission in presenting Srimad Bhagavatam, was to educate the world, the mission of life, and to see the futility of the absence of the purpose of life. Doesn't lead to a good place. Because they have been captivated by the external energy of the Supreme Lord, they have completely forgotten the Supreme Lord Vishnu. And thus, they've taken it for granted that this life, as presently manifested under the conditions of material nature, is all in all for enjoying the highest amount of sense gratification. So the sense gratification appetite is strong. And how do you curb it? Because it's really strong. Don't just say stop, because it's not going to stop. It can be diminished, but then it's going to rear its head again. So it's just stopping is insufficient. So what's sufficient? The bhakti principle takes care of the curbing down sense gratification propensities. It doesn't immediately dissolve it, but it has the potency to dissolve it, proportionate to the awakening of another purpose. The other purpose is the senses and the objects of the senses interacting with one another have a higher purpose, as much as proportionate to that higher purpose being awakened. So this is the whole of the Bhagavad Dharma, the whole of the training of Srila Prabhupada through his commentaries on the Bhagavatam, is to help his reader, help his followers understand the purpose of life and how to achieve it. And he's tireless in presenting this. Such a wrong conception of life cannot give anyone the desired peace of mind, and thus, in spite of all advancement of knowledge, by use of the resources of nature, no one is happy. Now people may say, wait a minute, I'm happy. But what's happy? What is happiness? And there's many things to say about what happiness isn't and what happiness is. What happiness isn't, for starters, is something that's temporary. Real happiness is permanent. And real happiness isn't on the reflection level, real happiness is on the internal level. The ananda portion or aspect of the soul, when that ananda portion of the soul is awakened, that's happiness. And that ananda portion is awakened by removing the covering and contact of the soul with this paramananda. That's when real ananda is experienced. So that real happiness is not hearing the statements that Prabhupada makes in his writings. It's important to keep the absolute perspective in mind when he's writing. There's no happiness in the material world. And it's true. There's a reflection, like a mirage. There's no water in a mirage. By definition, there's no water in mirage. It looks like. Similarly, by definition, there's no happiness in the material world. It's not what real happiness is. It's a reflection. And there are a lot of people chasing after it. And they may think, water in the mirage. But there's no water in the mirage. There's no real happiness. When I was in Singapore, I was asked to speak on this topic to a group of people they're like industrialists and very successful business people that have, a beginning awakening for bhakti. So what is happiness? So without rubbing their nose in, something smelly, it's not, material happiness is not real happiness. The now you see it, now you don't sense of what happiness is not happiness. That's real easy. Here's an apple, here's a mirror, there's a reflection of the apple in the mirror, there's an apple. Turn the mirror, the apple's gone. It's not what apple is. It's a reflection, but there's no substance. So similarly, the appearance of happiness in this world is insubstantial. It's just a reflection. There is a real thing. We don't say Nirananda, but Paramananda. And the living entity is being part. So making that connection, that's what Bhagavad Dharma is doing. So going back to this universal form, what Prabhupada is doing is taking the propensities that are the illusory propensities, thinking independently. We're not independent. We're dependent. We have some free will choices. We can choose things, what occupation, which path to move on to get to point A to point B. Doesn't always happen according to our plan, but we can make choices. So because we're dependent. But we're dependent. And that's an essential part of Bhagavad Dharma. We're conscious entities making choices. And the message, overall message, is to align those choices towards the mission or purpose, instead of living animal life or two-legged animal life. Need a two-legged transcendental life, taking the human form of life towards its purpose. Takes knowledge to know what the purpose is, and knowledge how to make the right steps going in the right direction, and so forth. It takes knowledge, it takes training, it takes reminders because we become forgetful, and it's a project. A lifelong project. But that's Bhagavad Dharma. And our guidebook here is Srimad Bhagavatam. So let's see if there's some discussion. It's 8 o'clock. Thank you for coming this morning despite the climate.
I'm just wanting to share something I'm relating. So there is a verse in the Bhagavatam, second canto, that says, by service to the spiritual master, one will be free from the vyasanas, or like...
Free from the?
Vyasana.
Vasanas?
Vyasana. Addictions, or like strong sense gratification thing. So when you're explaining how the bhakti, how one gets the strong sense gratification, without Krishna, and then how bhakti dissolves, it was very correlating and inspiring. That's what I said. process, how it works. So it was nice.
Anything else?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. This first part of the purport, I can very much relate that I always...
You want to fix the sound? It's ringing back. Adjust the sound. Go ahead, keep speaking.
I find myself, just constantly thinking of what to do next, what to do next. So that's like in the hankering. So what I want to know, if you have any suggestions to bring, come to the present state. What can I do to stay in the moment or in the present?
Philosophy helps, but it's insufficient to stay. One of the best ways, if not the best way, one of the best ways is your practice of chanting japa or mantra meditation. The tendency of what's next, or not being with what you're doing right now with chanting, it's not fulfilling on one sense, and it's an offense on the other sense. It's not. So to be inattentive because I'm busy, either past or future, equals inattention. So how to be attentive, which is what your question is. Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj gave a really simple, short, I think it was like 10-minute, 12-minute presentation on chanting japa. It was cute. It was like, there's 3 rules for chanting japa. You've seen it. Be attentive, first rule, then he explains. Second rule, be attentive. Explains. Third rule, somehow or other be attentive. Then there are things you can do to help be attentive. But it's the understanding of the necessity that's impelling. Then there's the practice of that which is the necessity because it's impelling. And it's practice and practice, abhyasa. As any one of us become more successful in attentive chanting, the more successful we'll be in living our life the same way. And conversely, the more we're practiced to chant inattentively, then, that lamenting over the past and planning the future becomes our lives. And not feeling satisfaction, which is uncomfortable. And we don't like feeling uncomfortable, but our propensities are still there. Passion and ignorance. It's conquering those two modes. And the conquering of those two modes is by bhakti. And so the most important part of our lives, most important part of our day, most important part of our life is how we engage ourselves with the holy name. And it's so great. Easier said than done, right? Easier said than done. But that's the place to go. And one of the lessons in this regard is good chanting breeds good chanting. Conversely, bad chanting breeds bad chanting. So give maximum attention to attentiveness while chanting, and you have the answer, the best answer to your question. Philosophy helps. Hearing encouragement helps. Staying in good association is imperative, and it helps. But it still comes down to our Krishna consciousness. The efforts that we have in being attentive to Krishna. And when everything is said and done, let's say, we're on our deathbed, and what's left? Anything else? Yes.
Guru Maharaj, it may...
Share that with her, Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj. Yes.
Guru Maharaj, it may be similar to Govindamani Mataji's question. I was thinking about when you were talking about this apple and looking in the mirror, that's somehow very visual and very helpful to see. What is that I'm constantly hankering after? And I had this very nice experience, I would say, for the past probably a week or so, whether I'm at work, home, whatever is happening, constantly in the background, the things are coming about the retreat planning and how about this, how about that. So there was no time or even consciousness shifting to here and there, what would happen otherwise. Obviously, we cannot have that kind of a focused effort all the time, and as you're responding about our need or requirement to be attentive for chanting, that can also be such focused mission for my life. But somehow it doesn't have the same kind of, the purposeful, or it just becomes like a routine. Okay, anyway I need to chant, anyway I need to read Bhagavatam. How can I bring...
It's bhakti. Bhakti, so the elements of bhakti are the servitor and the served, and the exchange of service. As we grow, it can start in the beginning, but as we grow, everything is there. Krishna is not different than his name. We don't have the capacity to realize that. We hear it and go, yeah, yeah, yeah. But so the realization starts to grow where at least the potential is there, that everything is there in the holy name. Which is, for some people, too simple. It's quite simple, but too simple. And so they need something complicated. So there's something complicated for the complicated. But, it's certainly possible for someone to be a good manager and to not be Krishna conscious. To be a good manager in the sense of putting all the pieces together in some manner that looks like good management, without Krishna thought. So the benefit of Sangha, sadhu Sangha, is Krishna and the devotees of Krishna are in the mix, if not in the center. And being passionate we connect that passion with Krishna's in the center, and it's an easy connect. And then when that seva is over, then what? We're lost, which is not lost, but not the same. So then the transcendental passion or transcendental enthusiasm, and there isn't a substitute. Strong eagerness for our relationship with Krishna. That's the starting point for bhakti. Even if we don't know it, that's a starting point for bhakti. And then it's maturing of bhakti means to mature that eagerness for our relationship with Krishna. That's bhakti, the servant, the object of service, the subjective and objective in the relationship. And that's bhakti. Please Krishna. Anukulyena Krishna Anushīlanam. And we practice it. And we try.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Thank you to you as well for still being with us in spite of this bad weather and Maharaj, the statement that you made, bad chanting breeds bad chanting, that kind of really scared me because often I feel that, just in the midst of everything else that's going on, like my travel to, the last 6 weeks in India, just a flurry of activities, chanting was, at best, somehow just getting it done or so.
That's unsteady bhakti. So don't be intimidated, get back on track. So, you just got to kick in the seat of the pants, now get back on track. Ooh. Bad chanting breeds bad chanting. I've been doing some bad chanting. And it's hard to get back. It's not just, okay, U-turn. It takes a conscientious effort. But it's innately there. Krishna is all attractive, etc., etc. However long it takes, that's how long it takes. You get back on track. Yeah, got a whole, however long your life is going to be, you got that much lifetime ahead of you, and use it wisely. Don't stay on the bad chanting breeds bad chanting track. Pause. I want to go over here. And so you go back to kind of like establish proper habits again. And it's rusty, doesn't move quickly in the good habits department or way. So it's okay. You pay the price for distracted chanting. Knowing it's natural. It's healthy is natural. That's where strength is. So you go there. Anything else? See the Prabhupada? He?